All right, let's get into it. Today we are tackling a term you hear everywhere, big data. But what does that even mean? We're going to break down the concept, figure out where it came from, and see how it's literally reshaping our world, one click at a time.
I'm sure you've heard this one before. It's this powerful, super catchy metaphor that gets thrown around, well, all the time.
And yeah, it's a great line, but what does it actually mean? What are we really saying when we compare, a spreadsheet to crude oil? That's exactly what we're going to figure out. So let's dive right in.
The analogy is actually really clever when you think about it. Crude oil, right out of the ground, it's not that useful. I mean, you can't just pour it into your car's gas tank. It has to be found. It has to be extracted, refined, and then distributed before it can power anything. Well, raw data? It's exactly the same. It's just this massive jumble of ones and zeros until someone processes it and analyzes it to create something truly valuable. So that leads to the next question, right? Where is all this digital oil even coming from? Why this sudden explosion in data? Well, the truth is, this flood has actually been building for decades. Okay, so for decades, companies have been collecting what's called OLTP data. That's online transaction processing. Think every single sale, every bank transaction, every little record. That was kind of the slow and steady start. Then, more recently, you had this huge growth in tech, credit cards, loyalty programs, online shopping, and that added a massive new layer. But today? Oh, today is a whole different ballgame. We have a constant, real-time tsunami of data from what's being called the Internet of Events. Every click you make, every show you stream, every post you like, every sensor in your phone or even your car, it's all generating data right this second. So this all brings us to a really important question. What's the actual difference between just having a lot of data and having big data? Because it's not just about the size, it's really about a few key characteristics that set it apart. Yeah, to really define big data, analysts often use this model they call the V's. Now, sometimes you'll see 7 of them, but these 5 are the absolute core. First, you've got volume. That's the sheer scale we were just talking about. Then there's velocity, the insane speed at which this data is being created and needs to be processed. Next is variety, which means we're not just talking about neat rows and columns in a spreadsheet anymore. It's photos, videos, text, sensor data, all jumbled together. Then there's veracity, which is a big one. It's all about how trustworthy and accurate the data even is. And finally, value. What's the point of all this if it's not actually useful, right? And look, this distinction is so important because you can't just open this stuff up in Excel. I mean, forget it. Regular data analysis is built for those nice, structured, manageable data sets that just sit still. Big data analytics, that's all a whole different universe. It's a field designed specifically to wrestle with these massive, super complex, and incredibly fast-moving data sets. So if the old tools can't handle it, what can? How do we actually refine all this raw data? How do we find those valuable little needles in this gigantic haystack? Well, it requires some serious digital-heavy machinery. We're talking about specialized software platforms like Hadoop, which was basically designed to break up and process these huge datasets across a whole bunch of computers at once. And then you have frameworks like TensorFlow, which is an absolute powerhouse for machine learning. These are the modern refineries for our new digital oil. Okay, I know that was all a bit technical, so let's bring it back down to earth. Where do you actually see the results of all this stuff? In your everyday life? Well, the answer is pretty much everywhere. Think about this. Have you ever finished binging a series, and the second it's over, your streaming service immediately recommends what becomes your next favorite show? Yeah, that is definitely not a lucky guess. And that right there is a perfect example of a core application. The recommender system. It's analyzing your entire viewing history, what you watched, what you paused, what you skipped, and it's comparing all those tiny patterns against millions of other users, all in real time, just to make an incredibly educated guess about what you'll enjoy next. That is big data in action. Or how about this one? You know when your phone automatically groups all the pictures of a specific friend or family member? How in the world does it know they're all the same person? Yep, that's another classic example of big data analytics at work, specifically image analysis. That system has been trained on literally billions of images to learn how to recognize facial patterns. And these same underlying principles are what power the speech recognition in our smart speakers and the real-time processing of all that streaming data from our social media feeds. So, when you boil it all down, the crucial point is this. Big data isn't really about the big part.
It's about the incredible power of finding that one tiny, valuable signal in an overwhelming ocean of noise. It's about turning pure chaos into actual insight.
And that leaves us with one final, kind of provocative question to chew on. This new resource, this data is incredibly valuable, and it's being generated by us, by our actions, our clicks, our movements, our conversations. So, if data really is the new oil, does that mean we're the product being refined? Just something to think about.